In a world that often measures success by how frequently someone appears in public or how packed their meeting schedule is, there is one type of person who is often misunderstood. They are the people who choose to keep their front door firmly closed when the weekend arrives. Many are quick to label them as antisocial, boring, or even accuse them of withdrawing from social life. But is that really the case? What if they are not running away from life at all, but are only just beginning to truly live it? Imagine the scene. The morning sunlight slowly filters through the gap in the window, while the curtains sway gently and brush against the spotless floor. There is no blaring television, no constant stream of phone notifications demanding attention. In the kitchen, someone stands quietly, patiently waiting for the water to boil without any sense of hurry. There's a kind of patience that many people outside may rarely possess. For this person, home is not merely a shelter from the heat and the rain, it is an extension of their own mind. Every tidy corner, every carefully arranged object, and even the silence itself reflects their effort to bring order to the chaos they encounter in the outside world. Most people believe that human energy comes from social interaction, from meeting people, talking, laughing, and sharing stories. But people like this operate according to a different logic. Drawing on the ideas of Carl Jung about introverts, they understand that social interaction is not always a source of energy. More often, it is something that drains it. For them, engaging with the outside world consumes their mental battery. And solitude is not a deficiency, it is a process of recharging. They do not dislike other people, they simply recognize that in order to return to the world as the best version of themselves, they need time to reorganize their thoughts without interruption. Out there, they may be just one person caught in traffic, or one face among many in an exhausting meeting room. But at home, they are the master of their own world. This is not about a desire for power, but about shaping their environment in order to cultivate inner peace. Within their home, they can decide everything, from the room temperature and the music playing, to a pace of life that no longer feels rushed. That sense of control provides a feeling of security, something that is difficult to find in an outside world filled with uncertainty and often marked by chaos. People often see those who prefer to stay quietly at home as lonely, as though their lives are empty or somehow pitiable. In reality, however, there's a profound difference between being alone and feeling lonely. For people like this, solitude feels like abundance. They have books to read, hobbies to pursue, and thoughts to explore. They do not feel that anything is missing simply because no one else is around. They feel complete. Ironically, the deepest loneliness often arises in the middle of a crowd, when they are forced to make small talk about meaningless things simply to keep a conversation going. In today's world, where busyness is celebrated almost as a badge of honor, choosing to stay quietly at home can become a subtle act of rebellion. Modern life is filled with noise that distances people from themselves. By consciously embracing solitude, people like this are, in fact, resisting that pressure. They refuse to be constantly available. They refuse to live in a state of endless distraction. Instead, they choose to remain faithful to their own rhythm of life, rather than joining a race whose destination is not even clear. If you look more closely, every corner of their home tells a story. The favorite chair in the corner of the room is not merely a place to sit, it is where many of life's important decisions have been made. The morning cup of coffee is more than just something to drink, it is a small ritual that helps calm the mind before facing the day. Their home is an autobiography without words, where every object carries emotional significance that is often far greater than its monetary value. There is a long-standing belief that strength must be expressed through a loud voice or a commanding presence. But people like this redefine what strength truly means. For them, real strength is not about how loudly someone speaks, but about how deeply they are able to master themselves. The ability to regulate their emotions, manage their time, and avoid overreacting is a form of strength that is rarely visible, yet undeniably real. They do not feel the need to prove their worth by conquering the outside world every day. Their inner calm is proof enough that they are no longer ruled by their ego. The outside world often leaves behind wounds, whether from failure, rejection, or hopes that never came to fruition. For this person, home is where those wounds are healed. It is like a quiet operating room, where each injury is slowly tended to, closed, and allowed to recover. The solitude they choose is not a form of escape, but a process of restoration. There, they do not have to wear a mask or pretend to be strong. They can be vulnerable, honest with themselves, and reflect on their mistakes without fear of being judged. From that place, they rebuild their strength slowly but with quiet certainty. People who are comfortable spending time at home often possess a deeply reflective mindset, not because they believe they are superior to others, but because they are accustomed to engaging in an ongoing dialogue with themselves. This is not a matter of narcissism, it is a practice of self-awareness. They often set aside time to reflect on their lives, revisit the decisions they have made, and ask themselves questions like, "Why did I do this?" or "Does this really matter?" Such questions may feel daunting to some people, but for them, this is precisely where clarity begins to emerge. Because of this habit of reflection, they are not easily swept along by the crowd. They do not chase trends simply because everyone else is doing so. Instead, they possess a strong inner compass, forged through countless conversations with themselves. It is this compass that keeps them on the path they believe in, even as the world around them changes at an extraordinary pace. One of the greatest strengths of people like this is that they do not depend on other people's approval to feel worthy. They can spend hours immersed in a hobby without feeling any need to share it on social media. There is no urge to seek validation, no need to prove anything. Their freedom comes from one simple realization. They have stopped looking for external approval. They know who they are, and that is enough. In a world driven by the constant race to appear successful, this mindset has become increasingly rare. Many people feel compelled to display their achievements as though their worth is determined by how much others can see. But for people like this, self-worth does not need to be put on display. It simply needs to be felt, protected, and quietly sustained. Many people also believe that time spent in silence is time wasted. In reality, the human mind is much like muddy water. If it is constantly stirred, it will never become clear. It needs time to settle, allowing everything that clouds it to sink naturally to the bottom. For people like this, silence does not mean doing nothing. On the contrary, a great deal happens within it. Ideas emerge, answers that once seemed out of reach suddenly become clear, and emotions that once felt chaotic gradually begin to take shape. Silence is a process, and they understand its value. At the same time, they are not blind to the other side of this comfort. They recognize that there is a fine line between choosing solitude for healing and choosing it out of fear of facing the world. They understand that a home can become a comfortable prison if they are not mindful. That is why they keep their intentions clear. The time they spend at home is not about hiding, it is about preparing themselves. It is a time to return to the outside world stronger than before, not to avoid its challenges. On the other hand, modern society seems unable to stop seeking distractions. There's always something to do, watch, or listen to. Silence has become something unfamiliar. That is why people who can sit quietly without feeling restless are often seen as unusual, or even at times, unsettling. Why is that? Because tranquility is like a mirror. It reflects something that not everyone is ready to see. When someone is genuinely content, simply being with themselves, it challenges the way many others live, especially those who may have long depended on constant activity or social noise to conceal a sense of inner emptiness. This independence reveals that there is another way to live, a way that is steadier, calmer, and perhaps more authentic. The ability to remain emotionally grounded without depending on external circumstances is often described as self-containment. It means they possess an inner reservoir of stability. They do not place their happiness in things they cannot control. They do not anchor their emotions to other people's opinions, and they do not allow the outside world to dictate how they should feel. When the world around them is in turmoil, they still have a place within themselves to return to, a place that cannot be disturbed by external chaos. It is from this inner refuge that their stability arises. People like this are often remarkably dependable over the long term because they are not easily shaken. They do not panic at the first sign of difficulty, they are not quick to be swept away by emotion, and they do not change course simply because of social pressure. Instead, they stand on a firm foundation, one that allows them to remain steady even when many others are struggling to keep their balance. Ironically, however, this sense of calm is often misunderstood by the people around them. Many try to draw them out or pressure them to socialize more often, as though they need to be fixed. Yet this pressure is often driven less by genuine concern than by discomfort. Their quiet presence unconsciously invites others to look inward, and for many people, that is a frightening prospect. It is far easier to persuade someone else to join the crowd than to confront one's own thoughts. That is why people who are deeply at peace are so often seen as unusual, when in reality, they are simply choosing to live in a different way. Their journey through life is no longer centered on proving themselves to the world. They no longer seek recognition through conspicuous achievements. That is not to say they lack ambition. Rather, the direction of their ambition has changed. Success is no longer measured by what others can see, but by how deeply they come to know themselves. It is measured by how honestly they acknowledge their own weaknesses, how courageously they face their fears, and how peacefully they make peace with their past. These are accomplishments that cannot be seen, displayed, or measured in numbers. Yet to them, they are the achievements that matter most. And more often than not, they celebrate these milestones in silence, in a quiet room, without applause or recognition, but with a sense of peace that nothing else can replace. In the end, people who choose to spend much of their time quietly at home are not individuals who have been left behind by the times. If anything, they may be the ones who have understood sooner than most what truly matters in life. While many people are busy chasing goals they do not fully understand, these individuals choose to pause, not because they are incapable of keeping up, but because they want to be certain that the direction they are pursuing is actually worth following. In a world that moves at an ever-increasing pace, they choose to move with intention. They understand that not all speed is progress, and that not all busyness is productivity. Many people appear active, rushing from one place to another, yet in reality they are simply running in circles, trapped in routines without meaning and carried along by the current without knowing where it ultimately leads. People like this do not want to live that way. They would rather move more slowly with a clear sense of direction than move quickly without purpose. They would rather take fewer steps, but take each one with full awareness, because for them, life is not about who arrives first, it is about who truly arrives at the right destination. Within the quiet of their home, they are doing something that remains invisible to others. They are thinking, planning, reflecting, and most importantly, getting to know themselves. Because in the end, every journey into the outside world ultimately returns to the same place, the self. If a person does not truly know who they are, then no matter how far they travel, they will still feel lost. That is why they are in no hurry. They are building a foundation that may not be visible, but one that profoundly shapes the direction of their life. It is a foundation of clarity of thought, emotional stability, and deep self-understanding. These are not things that can be gained overnight. They cannot be bought, displayed, or achieved in a short amount of time. And it is precisely because of that they are so profoundly valuable. There is one thing that often goes unnoticed: the ability to feel that one is enough without constantly seeking fulfillment outside oneself. This is one of the rarest forms of wealth, and people like this possess it. They do not live with a persistent sense of lack. They are not constantly afraid of falling behind, nor are they trapped by the pressure to become more than everyone else. Instead, they live with a deep sense of enoughness, and it is from that place that their peace arises. It is not because their lives are perfect, but because they no longer anchor their happiness to things that are uncertain or beyond their control. They do not wait for the world to become ideal before allowing themselves to feel at peace. Instead, they cultivate that peace from within themselves. Of course, this does not mean they shut themselves off completely from the outside world. They still go out, interact with others, and pursue meaningful work. The difference is that they do all of these things with full awareness and intention, not because of pressure, not because they fear being left behind, and not because they seek recognition, but because they genuinely choose to do so. There is a profound difference between doing something by choice and doing it out of obligation. People like this live by choice. When they return to the outside world, they do so with renewed energy, a clearer mind, and greater emotional stability. They are not easily swept up by the mood of the moment, drawn into unnecessary drama, or thrown off course by temporary pressures. They have an inner center, a steady point of grounding that gives each step they take greater certainty, clearer direction, and deeper meaning. More often than not, the greatest transformations in a person's life do not happen in the middle of a crowd. They do not happen on a stage or beneath the spotlight. Instead, they are born in silence, in those moments when a person is completely honest with themselves, when there are no distractions, no outside voices, only themselves and their own thoughts. It is in those moments that so much begins to change. Important decisions are made, the course of life is set, and one's identity is shaped. People like this have become deeply familiar with that space, a quiet place that may feel intimidating to some, but to them feels like home. That is why they possess a strength that relatively few people have. They are not afraid of being alone, they do not depend on the presence of a crowd, and they do not lose their sense of direction when no one is there to validate them. They continue to move forward, to grow, and to evolve, even when their progress is not visible to others. And perhaps this is the part that is most often misunderstood. From the outside, they appear quiet, as though they are doing nothing at all, perhaps even falling behind. Yet beneath the surface, they are working diligently, refining their plans, strengthening themselves, and thoughtfully reshaping the direction of their lives. They are like the roots of a tree growing quietly beneath the ground. Invisible to the eye, yet they provide the essential support that allows the tree to grow tall and strong. People like this are never in a rush to appear successful. Their focus is on becoming truly prepared to face whatever comes, prepared to endure, and prepared to grow. And when the time comes, they do not simply move forward, they surge ahead, guided by a clear sense of direction, supported by a solid foundation, and sustained by a confidence that is not easily shaken. So if you are someone who feels more at ease spending time at home, there is no need to think of yourself as strange or left behind. It may simply mean that you are going through a process that not everyone understands, a process of discovering who you are, building strength from within, and finding a path that is genuinely your own. And while the world around you continues to race forward without pause, you choose to stop for a moment, not because you have given up, but because you want to make certain that every step you take from that point onward leads you to the destination that truly matters.